Eugenia Meyer is suing Caitlin Hatchell, her former daughter-in-law, for funeral expenses, and the defendant is countersuing her former mother-in-law for harassment and emotional distress. Now, I've read this case, and I have to say it makes me very sad. We have two people here who are experiencing firsthand the tragedy of war. You lost your beloved son, and you lost your husband. You claim that your former daughter-in-law refused to let you have any say in the where your son would be buried, and you claim that your former mother-in-law has harassed you and your family since your husband's tragic death. Now, instead of supporting each other during this horrific experience, you're suing each other. Why don't you tell me, Eugenia, why you're suing your former daughter-in-law?
I came about having to purchase my son's grave from her because no headstone had been placed on it for over 8 months. And so we were claiming abandonment or starting the process to claim abandonment of the grave when we were approached by the Army stating that additional remains had been identified and my son needed to be buried. We had custody of the remains that were in one location, and Caitlin only had authority over the grave.
When did your son die, Eugenia?
My son's Specialist Brandon Meyer, and he was killed in Iraq January 28th, 2008.
And how old was he when he died?
A week short of his 21st birthday.
Oof. He was married to you at the time?
Yes.
How long had you been married at this point?
14 months.
And how did he die?
An IED with 4 other soldiers.
And how were you notified of his death?
The military came to my door.
Oh. And where were you when they came to your door?
I was visiting my grandmother in California for my birthday. It was 9 days after my birthday.
How did you find out that your son had been killed in Iraq?
The Army came to my door at 7 a.m., 2 days after he died.
I am so sorry. So sorry to both of you. And you, sir, are the father?
Yes,
Would you
Your
please
Honor.
stand? What is your name?
Terry Meyer.
Terry Meyer, again, and I'm sorry for your loss as well.
Thank you.
You can sit down, thank you. You were notified that your son was killed in January of '08.
Yes.
How long after that does the body come home? I'll ask you this, Caitlin.
It arrived February 9th,
February 9th?
and then
No.
February 11th was a funeral.
Okay, you're saying no. How could we disagree on this?
He arrived back in California on February 9th. He arrived in the United States the Wednesday after he was killed.
Do they keep them in a particular place?
Yes.
Where do they keep them?
Dover Air Force Base.
Okay, and then where do they bring the body after Dover?
To California, to wherever he's going to be buried, and he was buried in California.
And you decided to bury him in California?
He told me before he deployed that he wanted to be buried near the ocean, so he used to surf in California.
There was
Okay.
additional information that Caitlin gave me the day Brandon died. I called, and it was the last conversation I had with her, and I asked her to please consider Nebraska, where our family is. She said when they talked that Brandon said, either bury me in California or Nebraska, I don't care.
He didn't say that.
That's what
All
she
right,
told me.
so what is the date of the funeral and the burial?
February 11th, 2008.
Were you there?
Of course.
All right, so there was discussion. You notified the plaintiff where you were going to bury your husband.
The military did.
Did you two talk?
We spoke, and she tried to fight with me about where he wanted to be buried, so after
That
that,
is not
I
true.
let it.
Your Honor.
Hold on.
I let it go through the military.
So after you have a discussion about where they're going to bury her son and your husband, you disagree and you never talk to her again.
Because we were going through a disagreement about something else. She was watching our dog while he was deployed and I was in California, and she wouldn't return the dog. So the military said, "Let us handle it. Do not speak to her until
The
we fill you
military
out."
says to a wife of someone who's been killed, we'll handle discussions with the mother of someone who's been killed. Do you think I believe that? You have to give the military the power to mediate between the two of you. That doesn't happen automatically. What happened?
Your Honor, the Army did notify me that the funeral would be in California, and they thought maybe on the 11th. And then the next thing we heard was from our niece, who was watching Caitlin's MySpace, and that's how we found out when and where the funeral would be.
I didn't post it on MySpace. I did not do that. I don't know how they found out. The military told me they would notify her.
You don't know
And-
how they found out. That makes it even worse.
The military
that
told me-
tells me that you don't know how they found out about the burial. Did you hear what you just said?
The military told me that they would notify her, and that's the last I heard of it. And then all of
But
a
they
sudden,
wouldn't have done that unless you said to them, I don't want to talk to her. You're fighting with her about a dog or because she wants her son buried in Nebraska? You should be bigger than that. What has she done to you that you don't like her?
She's been rude to me since day one. I have 8 statements here stating Terry told me that my dad was going to hell because he's a Jew.
Did you say that, Terry? Stand up.
I couldn't say if I said that or not. I'm a Christian minister, but the point is, if I would go back to the point we were talking about, when I called Caitlin to ask when Brandon's funeral would be, that she couldn't even tell me when my son's funeral would be, and she knew that I was the pastor I was going to do my son's funeral.
I didn't know when the funeral was going to be.
I wanted to do it.
Terry, you're a Christian minister. Did you make the comment about her father?
I have.
No. You're a Christian minister. You're under oath. Don't lie to me. Are you making ethnic comments? Are you spewing hate?
No.
Are you making an ethnic comment about her father being Jewish? What difference does it make?
No.
Here's why that even came up, Your Honor, is when we had a conversation with Caitlin, she told Brandon when they were dating that she was Lutheran.
I never said that. I've never been baptized Lutheran until we were engaged so that you guys would accept me and we could get married in the Lutheran church. I got baptized Lutheran.
Where did you get married?
In the St. John's Lutheran Church in Orange, California, which is the same place we held his funeral.
Let me see his picture. How would he feel if he knew that we were in court today? What a good-looking kid. Great-looking kid. Not even 21 and died. How sad.
Your Honor, may
Yes.
I? We've received bills in Brandon's name for Brandon from Caitlin. She's used my cell phone number to open an account. And the one time that I did call after we got a bill.
Why are you getting the bill if she's the wife?
Because Brandon always used us for backup.
So I
we
never-
were his
So
credit.
let me ask you a question. When Brandon died, did you settle his estate and pay the bills?
The stuff that was on his credit, the stuff that people contacted me about, I did.
All right,
I
so
paid off his car.
but my question is this: why would they be contacting her if you're paying the bills?
I have no clue, but
But isn't it fair for her to contact you?
it's
Did you
not.
get the death benefits from the Army?
not the whole thing. They've got
What did
part
you
of it
get?
too.
What did you get in terms of death benefits?
$300,000 and 3 years of benefits.
So it's 300.
Yes, and then I get $100,000 death gratuity to pay for
So that's
anything that comes up.
$400,000. How much did you get for the burial of your husband?
$6,500.
So far we have $406,000, 500. Right?
Yes.
So, and they're sending her bills for your husband when you got it well over $400,000?
She
And
can
this
forward it to
lawsuit
me.
is about your suing her for the funeral expenses?
In order to put a headstone on Brandon's grave, Caitlin offered for me to buy his
That's not true.
grave. She texted my daughter after the additional remains were buried.
What additional remains?
That's how things got so out of control, is there were additional remains identified.
After he's buried, they find more remains?
Yes, for 6 months. They tried to contact Caitlin and she wouldn't reply.
6 months later, after what did they
September
find?
4th.
What did they find?
I didn't ask.
And 6 months later, they reach out to you.
And for the next 3 months, Caitlin played a game with us of whether or not she would sign the paperwork to open the grave to let it be buried.
What remains were found, Caitlin?
His legs.
His
You don't
legs
even
are
have to
found?
say.
I'm so sorry. They find his legs, but why are they reaching out to his mother?
I had changed my phone number so many times from her phone calls that they couldn't get a hold of me.
That
and
is
Wait a minute. You just made $400,000 from the Army. Why can't they follow the money? What are you talking about? They
they
can't
sent
find
it
you.
to.
Why can't they find you?
I was not living at my grandma's house when they had notified. I did not give the Army my new address. They notified me after they had ownership of the remains. They had ownership. I had ownership of the plot. Oh, they
He's
gave it to
a whole
her.
body. He is not a bunch of parts.
Oh, dear.
I didn't want to know what extra they found. There's enough on that. It was just horrible. Yes, 3 months passed from the time that we took ownership until Caitlin would even sign the paperwork. That was for 6 months after they tried calling her. If they can't find her, Judge Pirro, I certainly could not have. I did not call Caitlin during that time period, even though we were receiving bills in Brandon's name and getting phone calls. But he is a whole person and he should be buried together. And we never would have known there were additional parts to be buried if Caitlin had taken her responsibility as his wife to handle that. We never, ever would have known.
You negotiate with her to buy
To pay for my son's grave.
the grave. Why?
Because you could walk past my son's grave and if you didn't know where it was, you wouldn't even know a person was there, a person that died for this country. You wouldn't know it was there.
Caitlin, when he was brought back, you made the decision to bury him in California. You had that right. You were the spouse. Now, she is saying that there was no, military-issued headstone on the grave in the beginning.
Yes.
Why not?
Brandon had told me he liked this specific biblical verse, and I couldn't figure out which one it was, and I couldn't find it in the notebook he kept, and they refused to help me with it, so
We were
I
never
just
They
asked.
refused to help you.
Yes.
You just refused to talk to them.
They were-
You wouldn't even tell them when the burial was. You're the one who said you had to get the military involved
I didn't-
to communicate between the two of you, and now you want me to believe you when you say you were looking for a biblical verse and they wouldn't help you? Now, you made her pay $15,000 for that gravesite. She's saying there's no headstone on it. You made $406,000 and you don't put a headstone on the grave, and then you charge her $15,000 to buy the gravesite?
I didn't. The military did not cover the funeral. It came out of my pocket.
That's
You
not
got
true.
$406,000. What do you mean it came out of your pocket?
I asked her to reimburse me for the gravesite
Why are
because
you selling the gravesite?
She told me
Who
that-
sells the gravesite?
she told me that her daughter wanted to be buried with Brandon because it's a double plot. He's 11 feet down, the next person goes 5
I did
feet
not
down.
tell you that.
Your lawyer told me that.
When did she buy the gravesite from you?
May of last year.
From January 08 to May of 09. As far as I'm concerned, that's 17 months. Did you figure out the biblical verse?
I figured it out.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Is it on the gravesite?
No, because
Why not?
I figured it out by the time her lawyer had
17 months.
by the time her lawyer
What did you
contacted
expect?
me.
Some message from God to tell you what the biblical verse was? Why did it take you 17 months?
I found it out in January of 09 when her lawyer
But you sold her the
contacted me.
gravesite in May of 09.
Because the first time her lawyer contacted me was in January of 09. They said they wanted the,
Irrespective of the lawyer, why wouldn't you put a headstone on the grave of a man who sacrificed his life for all of us? You know what, Caitlin? I came in here right down the middle. I said, these are two women who are brokenhearted. These are two women who've lost the ultimate. You lost your husband, she lost her son. This woman, and I read every paper, I read every piece of paper here. This woman traveled to California 8 times to go visit her son's gravesite. You're nowhere to be found. She's getting letters saying we found the rest of the body parts. She's getting bills. She's got her lawyer having to negotiate on the basis that the gravesite is abandoned. And you have the unmitigated gall to come into my courtroom and say to me that she wouldn't help you out, or she wouldn't give you the information, or she wouldn't help you write the gravestone. You get $5,000 and you should be ashamed of yourself for what you did to that woman. Shame on